Okay, so welcome to episode 21, Sally, of the Health Business Leaders Show. I've consistently got that number wrong, but I've double checked it this morning. It's definitely 21. So today I'm joined
21.
by, yeah, I did it. The legendary Sally Wynter. How are you, Sally?
I am not too bad, thank you very much. A
I know
little
you've had
bit
a
back
very busy week.
on from the launch of my new tech platform this week, but yeah, we soldier on.
Okay, well, thanks for taking a bit of time out of your diary to have a chat with me. I'm really excited to kind of talk a bit about your entrepreneurial journey. We had a bit of a chat the other day about it. So, just quickly, could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about, you and what you do and a bit of your backstory would be brilliant.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Sally Wynter. I have just launched my third business. I started out entrepreneurship in about a year and a half, 2 years after leaving uni. I didn't know what startups were, that you could be a business owner growing up. I didn't really have the kind of role models around me. But I fell into it really when I just started to have ideas, etc. And I started going to events essentially where I found other like-minded people. And I went on to launch my first business, which was a CBD gin brand, and had quite a wild journey with that, with an exit in about 15 months after I had the idea. So like 9 months to build, 5 months product in hand. And yeah, I've just launched my first tech startup, which is a platform for Gen Z job seekers.
Okay, well, it's fair to say you were very, very proactive and you always got a lot going on. So I want to just kind of break it down a little bit.
A lot going on, that's very true.
Yeah. If it's okay with you though, let's talk a bit about, I suppose correct me if I'm wrong, the one that you probably were most known for. I know it's on your LinkedIn. You had lots of traction and a lot of interest when it first happened. We spoke about it a couple of days ago, but just tell us about, a bit about that kind of the CBD brand and that story, because I found that really interesting to understand, how you started it, the ups and downs were interesting as well. If you could share a bit about that, that'd be cool.
Yeah, sure. So I had the idea for the CBD brand in late very at the December 2018 essentially, and I hadn't started a business before, never really worked in a business either. So I had freelanced a little bit post uni in the media and film production world, and I just had this sense that I wanted to start something, right? So I did what lots of people do. I had lots of ideas. I didn't quite manage to start any of them. There was always something putting me off. And then at the end of 2018, I remember seeing this article online. It was like CBD is going to be the next avocado on toast. And I was like, okay, that's really interesting. And then like I guess for a few months before, I'd heard all these stories like, oh, my nan's using CBD and it's helped her with arthritis, or like a friend was using it and it was helping them with sleep. And there was all these like miracle stories going around. Like there was this hype and excitement around CBD. So I was like, okay, this is interesting. At the time, I was really into my sports fitness. And so I ordered some of at that point, it was just in oils. And I tried some of the oils. It was kind of like a dropper that you put onto your tongue. And there was immediately a couple of issues that didn't really fit with the hype, right? So first of all, it tasted really bad. And as much as like, that something's good for you, you're supposed to take it, but if it doesn't taste good, it kind of puts a lot of people off. Number
Like
two,
grassy taste, right? Is it a grassy taste? Yeah,
like
tried it.
grass, yeah, quite bitter, herby. It's like definitely not super palatable to most people.
Yeah.
The number two thing that was weird that like nothing else came in that format was like it was a dropper to put oil on your tongue, which was just like a weird way to consume something.
Mm.
And then the third thing that I noticed and was really aware of in the UK is that there was a big stigma around cannabis. So I was like, okay, it's clearly a product that's going to go huge, but there's so many issues with the way that right now you can actually get access to CBD. And so I thought, I had a bit of a wild idea. I thought, what if I combine this with a product that people already know and love? And in the UK at the time, still today, that was gin. So people think I'm a bit like crazy when I say, well, I'm going to make a CBD gin. But that's what I decided. I thought this will go viral. Journalists will write about it because they're already writing about CBD and gin. If you put the two together, and I thought if I get loads of publicity somehow, then all the listings from like the retailers will come in, and like that's my business plan. So I didn't know a lot starting out. But I just had this like obsession, I guess, where I was like, this is going to be the thing. So I spent there 9 months figuring out really basic stuff like how to form a company, and the product development. One of the biggest challenges, I guess, is you're making a product that's never been made before. And my other biggest challenge was that I was freelancing for about 10 to 12 pounds an hour, and I didn't have any friends or family with money, right? So I didn't have cash to burn. I was also quite nervous about spending money on stuff, and I didn't have any experience. I was kind of like fumbling around in the dark a little bit. And I struggled also with confidence because I was like, oh, never even worked behind a bar, didn't know anything about the industry. So I started off by messaging people on LinkedIn who are entrepreneurs I admired, asking them for coffee. I Googled things, I found blogs. I started to, one of the first things I did was ring a distillery. By Googling, I ran a couple of distilleries and I asked them like, well, what would I need to start this gin business? What licenses? Can you help me, etc. And yeah, 9 months later, in September 2019, I managed to launch this product. And I basically had a bunch of press articles in the Metro and Evening Standard and things. And so I had a really big launch, obviously with no budget. And 5 months after that, I had a 7-figure exit opportunity on the table, which I took, which was honestly probably one of the most weird journeys everyone's ever been on as an entrepreneur. Given I was in my bedroom, didn't really know what I was doing, was figuring things out along the way. And actually, I didn't even know you could exit a couple of months before because my friend was like, oh, I've got an exit on the table. I was like, what does that mean? Like, I didn't really know that acquisitions were even a thing. So it was a wild journey. I learned an incredibly huge amount. And there was, as you noted there, like a lot of struggles along the way as well.
So interesting. There's a couple of things I want to pick up on that kind of jump out at me. So, this is obviously my 21st conversation, right? And I talk to entrepreneurs all the time. So these stories of, you know, resourcefulness is something that popped up in my mind, having, essentially nothing, no support, no finances, nothing, and making something out of nothing is really interesting to me. And I suppose the second part is that you mentioned the word obsessed. So you
Yeah.
became obsessed with this thing. It wasn't like obsessed over the result. It's like, I want to make this thing right. So just a quick question on that kind of journey then. So you didn't know that it was going to work out the way that it did, right? But did you know deep down that you were going to do something that you was going to make it a success no matter what?
This one's such a weird one to answer because I was definitely like I had this naive, crazy ambition that like I was gonna somehow make it a global brand and it was be this big thing. And I very much like built it. Like I looked for a distillery that could have been doing like, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of units. Like I really reverse engineered it with that. But then I also had to battle a lot with that voice in my head, which was really strong. That was just like, you're not qualified, it's not gonna work out. Like I was almost, to be honest, like crippled by this huge ambition because it kind of like the weight of it just made me so overwhelmed and it made it like hard to start. So like it took me months and months to register the company of Company's House. Like that was terrifying for me, paying
Yeah.
that it is like 12 or 20 quid and like pressing that button. So each step for me was I felt quite paralyzed to be honest to move forward. And the ambition kind of helped, but also like didn't help, if that makes sense. But yeah, the resourcefulness thing. So like again, like I didn't one of the things that got picked up massively, which I didn't really realize when I was like Googling a PR template and reaching out to journalists, was like that I had ended up launching this gin brand, this product, etc., with brand, trademark, website, etc., all for under £1,000. And I didn't know that was a thing because that's just what I needed to get by. I had to do it on like very minimal funds, drip fed when I had savings from my earnings, etc., going into the business bit by bit, like 80 quid there, £100 there. And that got picked up. Why? Because it costs an average person minimum like 80 grand to launch a brand like that. And I got
Yep.
so many quotes along the way for like, oh, one of the first things that happened with the distillery that I spoke to was like, yeah, we can do the test with the CBD and stuff. That'll be 10 grand a go. And 10 grand didn't like get you any like didn't get you any guarantees, right? It was 10
Yeah.
grand, like maybe see a result, and then another 10 grand, another 10 grand. So like there were so many moments that I just thought, oh well, I can't launch this. It's the same like when I had the recipe ready, I had like the design of the logo, the name. I then couldn't even afford to produce the first run. So I had to get publicity and get the word out, which I did through using the template and then getting some PR, some press articles. And then from that, people pre-ordered, and I used that money to fund the production run, which was so fraught with like risk and so many stuff when things went wrong. It took like 8 weeks for them to get product because there was so many manufacturing issues. But yeah, I had to be incredibly resourceful, and it was hard to be honest. A lot of people were like, "Oh, why did you choose to do that?" I'm like, "Well, no one would choose to do that because it's I was doing everything myself. I was learning about trademark law. That stuff was like boring and hard. Like, yeah, it was a lot, but obviously it took a lot of resilience, and yeah, I also definitely went on a journey with confidence as well. So it was a big time of growth for me, which I think a lot of people do have with their businesses.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's so interesting just to talk about that journey. And you mentioned about, the way that it was picked up by the press and you kind of got that publicity, right? But I know you kind of personally from a business perspective. So I know your writings, a lot of, you're really skillful at it. So if there's people watching this that would love to kind of replicate or take some lessons from your journey, how would you kind of, guide them step by step to get the kind of publicity and press that you need to maybe put some rocket fuel on what they're trying to build?
I'd say vulnerability goes like a huge way. So one of the big things that I did, which was by the way terrifying, was when I launched in September, I basically did a post on LinkedIn, and I was like, everyone thinks I'm a bit mad, but for the last X months, I've been like launching, working on this gin brand, blah 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 blah. Like obviously, I had huge imposter syndrome. Like I was working in media, I never worked behind a bar. But yeah, I think sharing your journey, number one, like it's hard to do, but if you can do that, it's going to get eyes on your business. It's going to help massively. And LinkedIn, I found is an amazing platform. And then like just asking people, like I reached out to people who'd help me in my journey. Hey, can you share this post? Can you comment? Can you engage? Just reaching out and asking for help. In terms of PR, I would say people think it's a bit of a black magic, but obviously journalists, I think all good marketing, I guess, is about empathy. And I would say reaching out to a journalist who's in your space. So for you, for example, will be like health, people who write about health, fitness, or even consumer trends. And you can just message them being like, hey, I'd love to help out with any of your articles. Because that's what the mistake people make, especially I think with PR and in general marketing. They're like, I want to get my product across to you. Like, da 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 da. Like, you need to get in the mindset of your target audience or the journalist, essentially, that's going to write that article. And you need to be like, hey, I noticed that you write these articles. A, flatter them, because everyone loves flattery. Your writing's great. Your articles are really interesting. And like I'm an expert on XYZ, so I could talk about health, fitness, diet trends, Ozempic, whatever it is. And then and just like leave your contact number and your email, etc., and be like, I'd love to help whenever. And just like a short message like that. Because once you've done that, you can build a relationship, and that person thinks, oh, that person's not trying to sell to me. They actually just want to be helpful. And then
Yeah.
you can kind of become a regular like that. So that's the easiest way to do PR, I'd say.
Yeah, and it's great what you said there because it's kind of how can you help them? Which I think where a lot of people fall short. It's like, well, I've got this product, I want to really share it and I want to make loads of money out of it. How can you help me? And it's why are they going to respond to that? Why are they going to engage with
Yeah.
something that's going to take them their time and it's only helping you,
Mm.
right?
But the other thing is have a go, right? So most people in life, in business, in whatever it is you're trying to do, like they're too scared to have a go. Like just send the message, do the thing, reach out. Like it doesn't have to be perfect. And especially if you're just reaching out, being like, I'm here, I'm available. I'd love to. Here's some things I've seen that are interesting recently. The
Yeah.
rise of AI and fitness, or whatever it is that you think is interesting. Just share it. Like you don't need to write a whole pitch. In fact, doing some long email or sending them a thing that's unsolicited is the surest way to not get a reply because journalists are incredibly busy and they've got inboxes full of
Yeah.
people pitching them.
So short and sweet, right? Something that's
Short and
impactful and
sweet, and
short.
just do it as well. Like you miss
Yeah.
100% of the shots you don't take, kind of thing. So just get started, send a
Mm.
few messages, and don't be afraid that you might not get a reply because first and foremost, it's probably because they have a million other messages, not because you know they're not interested or it's not helpful, etc.
Yeah. I
And
found, I
don't be
found in
afraid
my
to follow up.
business that, sorry, Sally.
And don't be afraid to follow up as well. Like if you haven't got a reply,
Yeah.
just be like, hey, did you get that?
Yeah. I agree. I found in my business that often when things aren't going the way you want it, it's because you've probably not done enough of the thing, right? So sending 5 messages and expecting to get 5 responses is not going to happen. If you send 100, you might get four if you're lucky, or two. So it's also a bit of a volume game as well, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think like your business is obviously about helping people and stuff. And so I guess there's a lot of vulnerability and stuff there, but like human connection is number one, whether you're reading about something. Like the example I always give is if there's some sort of like flood or like natural disaster, like and you I don't know, all the fish dry up in the sea or whatever it is, like that story is kind of like, yeah, it kind of matters, but people aren't really drawn in until there's a human element. So the example I always give is, well, if you actually told the story of the fisherman who can't fish, can't provide for his family, and now he's about to be homeless and because he couldn't pay the mortgage, like that's a powerful story because humans connect with other human beings. So that's why I always draw it back to be vulnerable, share like that you're scared, you're nervous to do something, or you know how things have been going, and just be like really honest and be helpful as well. So one of the things I've done is break down on my LinkedIn. You can see there's a featured post of like how I actually managed to launch without money, how I spent the money to start the gin brand, like what I spent on and where, which platforms I used and things like that.
Yeah, sure. It's an engineering. Obviously, I've done your PR course and the news course, so I kind of understand a bit more than the average person. But I suppose when I first entered that world, it was a complete unknown for me, completely unknown. But I've learned more about it through you, and it's you're a real testament to how you can take that as a tool and really make it work. So yeah, it's a very interesting subject. But from a kind of a business owner point of view, you mentioned like the highs and lows and the journey you've been on, right? So I'm just interested to kind of obviously we talk about health, right? So interested to hear a bit about how you manage the stress and the pressure. Was there kind of like, and you mentioned you used to work out and stuff like that. So just tell us a bit about that and how it's helped your journey as well.
Yeah, I think health is one of those things that's super important for entrepreneurs because obviously, I mean, if you're like me, like I'm a bit relentless. I've got ADHD as well, so like I can get really, really like obsessed and just become like a workaholic with something. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs will relate to this because it's like, unfortunately, like in periods of extreme stress, etc., like with the gin brand, actually, like I've been through a little bit recently as well, is it's really hard to do the things that you know will help. So like that's good sleep, that's good diet, like exercise has been literally like at times thrown out the window for me. And I think the other thing is burnout. So like when you're extremely stressed, your cortisol levels are high. I like stress apparently can be worse than you for like than worse for you than like drinking and smoking. Like it's terrible for your body, which is not good for me because I heard that like also if you're stressed or excited, then it all manifests as cortisol, and I'm basically always stressed or excited, which is not great. But yeah, I'd say I was in a really tough spot with the gym brand, to be honest, because I was on my own. I was pretty like paralyzed by stress and like terror about like the ambition, the vision, but like all these problems were there. I was really isolated as well, so I never have a mentor. I didn't really have a support network around me. Like I had individual coffees and stuff, but it was hard. And I also was quite when I started out quite naive in the business world. So for example, you're obviously supposed to have a strategy where you like is for example, if you have a food and drink brand, you should be like aiming for okay, I'm going to sell into bars and restaurants, or I'm going to sell into retail, or I'm going to focus on online sales. And because I didn't really have the confidence, I guess, I kind of knew I was supposed to be focusing on a channel, but obviously you're you don't have the confidence to be like, I know if I go after this channel and I know how to kind of go after it. So I was going after it all. I was like replying to customer complaints or customer queries on the website. Like I was ordering, I was doing the logistics, making more gin to keep up with orders. And then I was walking around London for like 10 or 12 hours a day sometimes, going into bars with a massive backpack full of gin and tonic on my back, which probably was like 15, 20 kilos, and trying to pitch the product. Like I was trying to do it all, trying to link like write
Everything.
like post in between. And obviously that's when I experienced my first burnout. And I remember it so clearly because your body like my body just like and my brain went into like fight or flight, and I basically like had a bit of a like my meltdown. Basically, like I felt like I couldn't function, I couldn't get out of bed, I like literally couldn't face the
Mm.
world. It's kind of like all your defenses come down, you just feel like a terrified, like vulnerable position, and like it's not good. It's really really horrible, and you think, oh, this isn't like if you haven't ever burnt out before, you don't realize how extreme it is. It's like a snap of a it's like a twig breaking, like something breaks inside you, and then you need to be really careful at that moment because I don't really know, like I guess burnout can lead to something even more serious, but it floored me. It was scary. I felt out of control. I felt completely overwhelmed. My emotional regulation was like gone. I was literally like hiding from the world for like several days, and I needed a lot of support to get through that. So it's not just being tired and stressed, it's something more. You'll know if you've been through it. And I think, yeah, a lot of business owners are at particular risk because we're so passionate, we're doing something that's hard, right? If it was easy, everyone would be doing it. It's a big challenge. It's a huge weight on you as well, like both the ambition and executing. So yeah, it's a tough one. But obviously important to try and avoid because it can put people up for weeks or even months. Like it can really destroy your life.
Mm.
As we'll
Yeah, I
know,
mean,
right? We've worked with loads of people who've gone through burnout and things like that.
yeah, I mean, yeah, you know, anyway, you know that I collapsed twice in the toilet and smashed my head on the floor and stuff like that. So I've been there myself, like that complete exhaustion, mental and physical. But you know, as you mentioned, it's not just the stress, it's not just the pressure, it's the mad hours and the lack of sleep and the constant doing stuff, and your body and brain just goes no. I'll give you a quick story about a client. Obviously, I won't share their name, right? But they started with us as a client, and they started to do the kind of health transformation program with us, and they weren't quite being open, honest about what their schedule was like, right? And it turns out, you know, this guy was doing insane hours, was still traveling loads, but wasn't really kind of letting us know everything that was going on. Anyway, we felt something was off. His numbers weren't changing, right? So we can tell when someone's not quite
Yeah.
in the program. And anyway, 2 days hadn't heard from him. Tried calling him, tried texting him, nothing came back. He texted us 2 days later and said, "Oh, hey, I'm in the hospital. I've got full blown pneumonia." So what often happens when people get burnt out, immunity drops through the floor, and then they get these issues. Pneumonia is a big one if you're traveling a lot as well, and pneumonia could be really serious, really serious. So he was knocked out for about 2 months, literally
Yeah. Sure. You can
couldn't do
die
anything for two
from that.
months. You can die from it, yeah. So I kind of think it's great you've brought that up, and it's a really serious thing that people don't generally talk about that much, but it's getting better now. But if you are an entrepreneur, you really need to be careful because it can happen quickly, right? It's a space of a couple of months, and before you know
Mhm.
it,
Yeah.
you're completely out.
100%. And I think that risk probably gets a lot worse as well as you get older. So like I'm doing all this in my 20s, but I just feel like your risk, your body isn't able to take anywhere near as much punishment as well as you get into like 40s and 50s.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, obviously, I mean, you're driving stuff, you're responsible for things. It's it's super important to take care of your health, but that's so much easier said than done. Um, because yeah, it's tough to balance. So I guess like being on a program or whatever, someone to keep you accountable is really important for that kind of thing. And I've never had that. I like go through like ebbs and flows. Sometimes I'm in a healthier place. Sometimes I'm doing lots of cycling, doing lots of exercise. And obviously I know that's the thing. Like you can feel the difference when you're eating like crap and you're not exercising. When I'm exercising and eating generally well, like not perfectly, but when I'm exercising particularly, actually, the rush of like positive hormones and energy when I'm working out regularly, even for like 10, 20 minutes a day, you just feel better. And I've noticed like I feel more optimistic as well. Like
yeah,
like your whole framing of the world seems to shift.
yeah,
And so yeah, it's just difficult to make it happen sometimes, but it's obviously the best kind of state that you can be in, which is
yeah.
annoying.
Of course. Yeah, no, it's not easy, and you know, obviously that's why we exist, right? Because trying to get those individuals like yourself and business owners into that middle ground. I mean, it's really tough, but as you've mentioned, when people start to experience the positivity and the mental clarity and the ability to make decisions better, there's no doubt about it. It makes you a better leader. It makes you a better business owner. It makes the culture in your company healthier and more positive. So I think you know, my industry is rife with people that talk about eat less, move more, and that's it. That's as simple as it is. And trust me, if you're a business owner and you've got to such a successful place and you've never worked out and you don't really eat, you're probably missing 30 or 40% of your potential of what you can actually achieve.
Yeah.
So it's a really obviously an
At my
interesting
leanest,
subject
by the
close
way,
to
I
my
never
heart.
restricted food, so I don't really get the like eat move more than eat less. It's like, but when you move more, you're more in a calorie deficit, so you need to eat more and move more. But you need to eat better. That's the main thing. And actually, when I was at my most like lean, I was eating. I wasn't restricting or counting calories at all. I was making better choices. So instead of
Yeah,
like I guess most meals have a lot of like so I cut out like processed carbs, I cut out rice and bread, and that forced me to put more like vegetables and pulses and other stuff on the plate. And I don't, obviously when you're eating like that, the fiber is so high that I guess you kind of just get fuller faster, and you're having a lot of protein as well. So I found it easier like that. But yeah, the idea of eating less and moving more while you're running a business is just actually just sounds like a formula for burnout, to be honest.
But it's written by people that don't understand what it's like to run a business. I've got two meetings after this. I need to be on point. I can't be, in a huge calorie deficit and feel like shit. It's just not going to work. So I think it's about, optimizing everything you're doing to not only help you to get that health result, but to help you to be optimal in your business. And it's not as simple as 99% of the people in my industry make it out to be. It's a much more holistic approach. As you've
Holistic,
mentioned, it's the food, it's the
sleep and
sleep,
everything.
it's the
If you
supplement,
haven't
everything. So much
slept,
to
by
it.
the way, like your, I don't know, it's like bromelain or something, but one of your hormones goes up and it like forces your hunger to like 10 times what it normally would be because you haven't slept well. So everything has an impact on everything else. I think sleep is the most important as well because it massively impacts your immunity. So poor sleep, like, and then alcohol often causes poor sleep because it reduces your melatonin levels, and like everything's basically interlinked. But I guess even doing a few things is better than doing nothing. So it's also important not to like beat yourself up too much. And like, for example, I've just launched my tech platform, which is like a platform for job seekers to kind of revolutionize how people look for jobs, but also to get career advice because um, when I was growing up, I wasn't like in an environment, I guess, where my parents had worked things out, and I wasn't getting told about like you can do this, you can be that, like, oh, here are all the job options because they hadn't themselves been, I guess, having a career. So I have been for the last 12 months working on this platform, and that's just launched this week. So that's been a very stressful period. I actually found that in the week before launch, I felt like really overwhelmed by stress, and it was actually clouding my like head a little bit. Like I found it hard to focus, how to read things on the screen. I found that my appetite like disappeared, etc. Um, so yeah, you just got to also give yourself like some understanding, I guess, that in periods of high stress, it's going to throw things out the window. But one of the worst things you can do, I guess, is be like, oh, well, I've missed that workout and my diet's been like crap. And then sometimes there's a temptation just to throw in the towel because of the guilt complex. So I think like being a bit kinder to ourselves is really important. But again, also you asked earlier about like PR and LinkedIn and things. When I was feeling at my worst, I can't say it was like it came straight away, but when I actually just opened up on my LinkedIn and just said, guys, I'm like horrendously stressed. I've got this launch next week, etc. Like, if you could just say that you'll support me and hopefully, because we need to get a few thousand users and stuff on the platform so we can unlock the next bit of funding, etc. And just to get feedback on what we built as well, because it's the first time it's in public. But when I did that, and I was just really open and vulnerable about how tough it's been, but obviously how ambitious and how much what I'm doing means to me. Like so many people like got on board with that and they connected with the story and they were like, sure, I'll spend 5-10 minutes helping. And I've already seen, dozens of people come on the platform. So that's really great.
What's your take then? Because that's interesting because you said about, that supportive side of, business. And I found I'm quite lucky because a lot of our clients are business owners, so we can chat and ask and spit all ideas, right? But what was your experience then with other business owners? Do you find that generally they were supportive or were they kind of negative about what you're doing? What was the general consensus?
You think that they're going to be negative, right? I think that's the voice in everyone's head, like, oh, if I put myself out there, if I ask, they're going to think I'm stupid or annoying or whatever it is. But like, I've just found that, honestly, I found that people have really shown up for me on LinkedIn. Like, they're strangers, they're just other people who are like aligned or they want to help. Like, and I think that again, that comes down to vulnerability, right? Because you're sharing, you're being honest, and like, every single person out there knows what it is to have an ambition for something and to want to do it, and the fear of like doing it at the same time and wanting support. And so honestly, like since that very first post to announce the gin brand, um, everything that I've done has just been supported by a load of amazing people who just want to show up because they're a human and they think that helping someone is a good thing and it makes them feel good too. So it's been transformative. There's one thing I would say is show up and just post things. I don't post regularly. I don't post a day or several posts a week. I actually just show up when I can. And regardless of that, I've still had an incredible, like I wouldn't have been able to probably get where I am today, I don't think, without having that as a platform and sharing my journey, because it's just it ends up with everything. It ends up with human connection, and human connection. Some of those human beings are investors, some of them are potential customers or users of your product, right? And so really it comes back to that human connection thing. And I've got loads of friends that I've met as well from just posting and connecting with people. And so yeah, it's not easy. It's going to feel like disgustingly uncomfortable the first few times I think you post, especially when you're talking about things that are like personal. But once you can get over that, like most things, right, all the progress is hiding on the other side of uncomfortable. Because uncomfortable just tells you that they're doing something that's like that's going to be a growth point for you. You're not used to it, right? And that's why it's like,
So get okay with being uncomfortable, right? Get
yeah,
comfortable with being uncomfortable.
yeah,
So would you say LinkedIn is the best place for business owners to hang out then? Would that
100%.
be fair?
100%, yeah. And it's like it's very writing led. So as you mentioned before, like I struggled at school, to be honest, like mostly because of how complicated and chaotic my home life was. And I went through a lot growing up. I ended up, my attendance was down at like 30% for like GCSE and A levels, etc. Like I had so many meetings at school, like she's not gonna get through, she's not gonna get the results she needs to stay in the school. Um, but I sorry, I lost my train of thought slightly.
Like you said, yeah, you said you was at school and you was struggling with attendance, stuff like that. You said LinkedIn's very writing led. You
Oh,
spoke about
sorry.
struggling.
Yeah, that's it. So the one thing that I was able to do really, really well without, I guess, having that support, having someone to be like, do this, do that. Like I didn't really, I guess, have that support growing up. So one of the things that I found really easy was to turn up to English literature and like just write things like creative writing or like analyzing a piece of writing because I got, I guess, a good eye for detail. And I like to write. I like writing for me is a way to get things out. But I didn't really think of it as like a career option or anything. But that I actually, funnily enough, used to get sometimes marked down because they're like, your tone is too conversational in this essay or whatever. You need to write more formally. That happened to me at uni as well. But that skill is now something that helps people connect with me through my
Yeah.
writing. So it's
Conversation
been,
was good, right? That's a good
yeah,
tone. Yeah.
I guess, yeah, I'm just writing it how I would be speaking. And that's how what I tell people as well when they ask me for advice on like, oh, how do I like how do I approach writing on LinkedIn? I'm like, well, one thing you need to do is you need to write as if you're writing to a mate, right? You need to write in your normal language, your normal tone of speech. Don't try and make it formal or professional, blah blah. Like that's what's uncomfortable, I think, about LinkedIn as well. Apart from just putting yourself out there as uncomfortable, is the fact that your professional network is on there. You're like maybe your boss is on there or like whatever it is. And so, yeah, it's like the eyes are on you, but the best thing that you can do is if you basically go for a professional tone and you try and like tweak it and you're not just like writing as you, the chances are that no one's going to see that. So it's like not that useful. So it will take a little bit of practice, but I just say always make sure that you look at it and you're like, this is how I would actually say this to a friend, or this is how I would speak even.
So yeah, I've learned that from you actually, is that being more um personal, being more kind of yourself. And I'll give you an example of I was listening to a podcast a couple of days ago actually. It was the high performance podcast, but I really got into, which is brilliant by the way. And they had Sarah Davies on there, who's the dragon, the lady from
Yeah,
Newcastle, and she spoke about her journey and how she was really nervous about her really strong accent and being accepted in the business world, etc., etc., etc. Anyway, she's on this podcast and she just had a full Newcastle accent, was going out there, the odd F bomb, the odd shit, and all this kind of stuff. And I sat there and went, right, I'm just drawn into this conversation because you're just being yourself. And I think
yeah,
as a business owner, and not so much now for me personally, but probably a year ago, you kind of think, right, well, people going to react well to that. But then I look at myself, if I'm in a situation with, say, three clients and we've gone for some dinner or something like that, I just kind of talk like how I am. And I
mm,
feel like really when you're trying to articulate who you are online, it's really important that people go, oh, that's actually how Cam talks. That's actually how Sally talks. So who they meet in person is not different to who they see online. Am I in the right
yeah,
kind of ballpark?
yeah, exactly that. And it's actually quite hard. Like when you write in your as yourself and you write about yourself a little bit, you give people a chance to connect with you and for you to be relatable. So, for example, like I've seen that like you write a lot about or here's this cute moment when, you know, my kid got obsessed with Star Wars or whatever it was. And like, so you talk a lot about like being a dad, you talk about like, you know, things that you're into. And I think that's one of the mistakes people make. And there is like, this isn't Facebook on LinkedIn, they're like Facebook warriors, but they're kind of missing
Yeah.
the point here because there is no such thing as a separation of the professional you and the real you. Like you all know, like the parts of your identity, being a dad or being into sports or rugby or like whatever it is, like that's part of your identity. And when you share bits, for example, I share on my LinkedIn header that I grew up on free school meals, and I still get messages from people going like, oh, I really relate to that because I also grew up on free school meals. So when you
Yeah.
share, you give an opportunity for someone to relate to you, whether it's
Yeah.
because you both traveled to Spain or because you both like the same TV show or because
Yeah.
you are both obsessed with, I don't know, eating cheese, like whatever it is, if you put yourself out there a little bit of the things that you're excited about and passionate about, that enables people to connect with you. And ultimately, companies, business, work, etc. It's all kind of made up because it's all just people connecting with people and
Yeah.
buying into each other and wanting to connect and spend time with other people, essentially, where there happens to be an exchange of maybe products or services sometimes, but we're all just human beings. So I've never really actually signed up to the idea of being professional. Like, what does that even mean? Fine,
Yeah.
apart from not like swearing at someone and being a nuisance, like being professional is like, it doesn't mean you should erase your identity. So that old school idea of that, just for me, like just doesn't, it doesn't materialize in logic at all.
Social media's done that, right? I mean, LinkedIn especially, I guess. I mean, there's more CEOs now posting that, wouldn't have done that 10 years ago because it'd have been hidden in the boardroom behind the scenes. But now people want to know who the CEO is. They want to know who the marketing director is. They want to see what they're up to, right?
Yeah, and it's nice to like people connect when they can see that that person's like a human being. Like they have fear, they have ambition, they feel
Mm.
not always confident about it, right? And like that's the other thing I guess sometimes people make a mistake of is like sharing like, oh, I've won this award and I've done this and blah blah, but like they don't talk about the struggle. Like the struggle makes it relatable and real. Otherwise, you just
Yeah.
kind of like you're grandstanding a little bit. And it's also good to talk about things that you're proud of, but you just yeah, you always need to present it as it is, and like we're all people who, you know, we want to achieve certain things and we have stories that we tell us and some of those are limiting, and like that example of Sarah Davies, she feels like, you know, I don't look at her and watch her on TV and think, oh, she's got a Newcastle accent, she must be less good than all the other dragons. But there's stories that we tell each other ourselves from our upbringing, and also there's that spotlight effect where we feel like all eyes are on us, like, and that internal pressure builds up. That's what happened with my launch. I was like, oh my God, I'm launching, like blah blah blah. And it's like I had to change the date a few times as well to, you know, because we're launching a very early version of the platform, etc. And a friend was like, no one knows that your launch is planned for this day. You can just put it back.
Yeah.
Like, oh, no
Yeah.
one knows but you, right? But like there's this feeling that like everyone
Yeah.
knows what's going on with you. And then
Yeah.
like your internal pressure builds up. But you just need to realize that you always need to put yourself in like their spot. So you think, well, how much do I care if about someone's LinkedIn post? I don't bat an eyelid. Like, and they can actually share something that's like really personal about them getting divorced or like something, maybe they've lost a child. Like, I'm never judging that person in a negative way, right? I actually think it's like very, it's 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 really awe-inspiring to be honest when people share and they're open, because it kind of makes you feel like you're like not alone, etc. And that's all the messages I've pretty much ever got. No one's reached out to me and be like, Sally, the fact that you shared that you were scared makes you think that you're a weak piece of shit. And so like I've just blocked you on LinkedIn. You're so
Yeah.
embarrassing. Like I've never done that. People just
Yeah.
reach out like, wow, it's really inspiring. Well, I've shared this post with my daughter. Like it's nice to see someone being open or sharing like valuable things about their journey, etc. And that's like it's always just been quite natural to me to just be like real, because I guess I like I seek human connections that are real. Like even when I was at school, when I was really young, when like most kids are like pretending to be XYZ to fit in, I didn't have that. I never had the inclination. I always just wanted like real conversations, to have real friendships, I guess. I'm a very like loyal, genuine person, and I wear my heart on my sleeve a little bit. And I think that's quite difficult when you're growing up. But now as an adult, it's been wonderful to be honest, because it just means that there's so many fewer barriers for me to connecting with people. And when people connect with you, they want to They want to help you. They want to support you. They want to champion you. And so as someone that came from, I guess, from nothing, like didn't have any network, didn't have any like of that knowledge and stuff of how to go about in the world, of what I could do, of how much you can earn, the fact that startups existed, like all of that I had to work out on my own. And I built my network brick by brick, basically, and my own journey brick by brick. So that's been incredibly helpful, to be honest. And that's the one thing I would encourage people to do more. Just open up and connect with people, and just don't be afraid of rejection as well, because 99% of time you think people are scared that they're rejected, or someone won't reply to them, but like that's the worst thing. They won't reply to you. They're not going to come back with some nasty message, etc. Like, people are busy, they might not get back to
Yeah.
you, but the chances are something good could happen with that message. So reach out and just put yourself out there a little bit and say you're ambitious about something and you want some help, and ask questions.
I've certainly found your story inspiring. I know there's some bits you spoke about the other day and understand a bit about your journeys. You know, I personally love to hear entrepreneurial struggles because I've go through entrepreneurial struggles, and hearing other people going through the same, you kind of think, oh well, you know, Sally's going through it and Jane's going through it and John's going through it. It just kind of makes you feel a bit more like we're all in this kind of boat together. And just a quick point I'd like to make, it's that you mentioned about the positivity you'd had from business owners and stuff like that. And I think there's, you know, talking about my industry specifically, I would love to change the way that it's set up, because there's an awful lot of kind of, you know, I could name you two people right now that have built their brands and built their businesses from being nasty and derogatory to other trainers. And it's kind of culturally, as an industry, I actually hate that part of it. I really don't like it at all. But on the flip side, as you've mentioned, on LinkedIn, within my kind of network of business owners, everyone's been, you know, positive and helpful, and they can see that you're working hard towards something and you believe in it and you've got a passion for it, and people do link into that. So yeah, thanks for sharing your story, Sadie. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And as I said, I am looking for lots of people to test out my new platform. So I can do a little plug,
Cool.
askhunch.com, get on your laptop or your desktop because we're not mobile ready yet. But yeah, that would be super helpful for people to try out the platform, even if they're not job seeking, just to see what I built, give some feedback, help us get another sign up. That'd be awesome.
The best place is to go to the website, not your LinkedIn, because I guess you get lots of messages on
Website,
there,
yeah.
right?
So www.askhunch.com. Yeah.
Brilliant. All right,
They can
Sally,
reach
thanks
out to me
again.
on on LinkedIn as well. Yeah, be happy to. All
Brilliant.
right, thanks, Cam.
Thank, thanks,
Bye.
Sally.